Tobacco's story is long, complex, and deeply entangled with economics, empire, medicine, and mortality. Once considered a sacred plant by indigenous cultures, tobacco would eventually become one of the most economically powerful and medically devastating commodities in human history. Tobacco is indigenous to the Americas and has been used by Native American civilizations for over 12,000 years. Archaeological findings from sites in the Andes and the Mississippi Valley reveal tobacco residue in ceremonial pipes dating back thousands of years. It was used in religious rituals, medicinal practices, and social bonding, a sacred plant believed to carry prayers to the spirit world. By the time Europeans arrived in the Americas in the late 15th century, tobacco use was already deeply embedded in indigenous culture. Christopher Columbus and his men were the first Europeans to observe tobacco smoking in the Caribbean, noting how the locals inhaled the smoke of a burning leaf with reverence. These early observations sparked curiosity and eventually commercial interest. The economic transformation of tobacco began in the early 17th century. English colonists in Virginia, struggling to find profitable exports, found success with Nicotiana tabacum, a milder variety of tobacco ideal for European tastes. By 1617, tobacco exports from Jamestown reached £20,000. By the 1620s, it was over £500,000 annually. Tobacco became the backbone of colonial economies, and especially in Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina, and was so valuable it was used as currency. Its cultivation, however, demanded intensive labor, which helped drive the transatlantic slave trade. Tens of thousands of enslaved Africans were brought to North America to work on tobacco plantations, forging a link between tobacco, slavery, and imperial wealth. Europe, meanwhile, experienced a tobacco boom. Pipes, snuff boxes, and later cigars became ubiquitous symbols of sophistication and social status across the continent. The 19th century brought mechanization. In 1881, James Bonsack invented the first cigarette rolling machine, which could produce over 200 cigarettes per minute. This dramatically lowered production costs and expanded tobacco's market to the working class. Major tobacco corporations emerged, among them the American Tobacco Company under James B. Duke, which dominated the US industry by the early 20th century. Advertising became central to the industry's strategy. By the 1920s, cigarettes were marketed as symbols of glamour, masculinity, and even health. Physicians were hired in ad campaigns to endorse specific cigarette brands. During both World Wars, tobacco companies supplied millions of free cigarettes to soldiers, a move that not only boosted morale but also cultivated lifelong customers. As cigarette use surged, so did lung cancer rates, though the connection wasn't immediately clear. In 1950, British researchers Richard Doll and Austin Bradford Hill published a groundbreaking study linking cigarette smoking to lung cancer. In 1964, the US Surgeon General's report officially declared smoking hazardous to health. This ushered in a new era of public health advocacy. Countries began mandating warning labels, banning tobacco advertisements, and restricting smoking in public spaces. Litigation followed. In the US, a landmark 1998 settlement, the Master Settlement Agreement, forced major tobacco companies to pay over $200 billion to states for healthcare costs. The World Health Organization later classified tobacco as the leading preventable cause of death globally. As of today, tobacco is estimated to kill over 8 million people per year, with more than 1.2 million deaths from secondhand smoke. Despite the health risks, tobacco remains an economic juggernaut. The global tobacco market was valued at over $850 billion in 2023. Over 100 million people depend on the industry for their livelihoods, from farmers to distributors. However, this comes at a steep cost. Tobacco-related illnesses are estimated to cost the global economy over $1.4 trillion annually in healthcare and lost productivity. Countries like China, the world's largest tobacco consumer, face immense public health challenges as a result. Tobacco control has thus become a balancing act between economic interests and public health. The WHO's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, FCTC, adopted in 2003, now includes 182 countries that have pledged to reduce tobacco demand through taxation, education, and regulation. In recent years, tobacco use has evolved. Traditional smoking rates have declined in many developed countries, but alternatives like e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products have surged, particularly among youth. The long-term health effects of these products are still under research, but they have reignited debates about regulation, addiction, and ethical marketing. Meanwhile, some nations are going further. New Zealand, for instance, introduced legislation in 2022 banning the sale of tobacco to anyone born after 2008, effectively phasing out future generations of smokers. At the same time, tobacco-producing nations and corporations are rebranding themselves, investing in smoke-free futures while continuing to sell billions of cigarettes in developing nations. The history of tobacco is not just the history of a plant, it's the story of human civilization grappling with power, profit, addiction, and morality, from sacred pipe to mass-marketed cigarette, from economic backbone to global health crisis. Tobacco has shaped societies, economies, and lives for centuries. As we stand at a crossroads and with knowledge, alternatives, and policy tools at our disposal, the choices we make now will determine whether the future of tobacco is one of decline or reinvention. What began in sacred ritual has become a cautionary tale, and its final chapter is still being written.